The smoky scent of grilled ribs mixed with the faint haze of mosquito coils as the Lin family's annual summer BBQ kicked off in suburban Phoenix. Laughter rang out, filling the air, while kids darted between lawn chairs and uncles argued over the latest fantasy football picks. I leaned against the side fence, 32 now, but still treated like the unsure art major who never quite figured it out. Clarissa, my younger sister, was the life of the party, glowing in her pale blue jumpsuit as she animatedly shared her latest triumphs with a group of relatives. "Carissa just finished her dual masters at Wharton and MIT," my mom announced, loud enough for everyone, including me, to hear. "She's had back-to-back interviews with Fortune 500 companies. That girl is going places." Mom beamed, acting like she'd orchestrated every step of Clarissa's life. I took a sip of my lemonade and braced for the follow-up. "Meanwhile," she added, her voice dropping just enough to make it pointed, "some of us still can't figure out what we want to do. Isn't that right, Emily?" I raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. Across the patio, my father chuckled while flipping a steak on the grill. "Still working on that little business thing?" he asked. "What was it again? Digital workflow something?" His laugh wasn't harsh, but dismissive. I traced the condensation on my glass, thinking of the 9 a.m. board meeting tomorrow where we would finalize the acquisition of Halden & Co. and announce our newly expanded executive team. I, the founder and CEO of Cascade Logic, would be signing off on the final approvals. "Something like that," I muttered, letting the comment slide. Just then, Clarissa clapped her hands, drawing everyone's attention. "Guess what? I've got a big interview tomorrow with Cascade Logic," she announced. "They reached out directly. It's one of the hottest tech consultancies in the country." Cheers and congratulations erupted from the crowd. My Aunt Vivian rushed forward with a glass of rosé. "That's amazing, Clarissa. I read about the founder. Brilliant woman, totally self-made." Dad nodded approvingly. "Their hiring bar is insanely high. They don't just take anyone." I hid my smile, remembering the neatly prepared shortlist from HR sitting in my inbox, with Clarissa's resume included. She had no idea the company she had been gushing about was mine, that I'd built Cascade Logic from my studio apartment in Tempe a decade ago, while she climbed ladders that were handed to her. "What position are you interviewing for?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Her eyes sparkled. "Senior strategy consultant. Can you imagine? That's practically executive level." "Oh," I replied, smiling into my glass. "I look forward to seeing how that goes." She laughed, adding with syrupy pity, "Maybe once I'm hired I can put in a good word for you, Emily. I'm sure Cascade Logic has a few entry-level admin roles." Mom gave an approving nod. "That's very kind of you, darling. Lord knows, your sister could use the help." She trailed off, gesturing vaguely in my direction. I thought about my penthouse office on the 27th floor of Cascade Logic's headquarters in downtown Phoenix, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private conference lounge. I thought about the Forbes profile last month that named me one of the most influential women in tech, though it credited me under my professional alias, Erin, with a silhouette photo to protect my anonymity. For the past 10 years, I'd been building Cascade Logic in the shadows by choice. "That's thoughtful of you," I said, my voice calm, almost amused. "Good luck tomorrow," Clarissa smirked, brushing a non-existent speck from her sleeve. "Some of us make our own luck, Emily. You should try it sometime." The conversation drifted to my cousin's new condo, my uncle's pickleball championship, and more of Clarissa's academic accolades. I let their words fade into the background. Tomorrow would change everything. I wanted to remember every detail of this last evening, the final time they all saw me as the afterthought. As dusk fell, casting golden light across the stone patio, Clarissa stood up and clinked her glass for attention. "I've got to head out early," she said. "I want to be sharp for tomorrow. Cascade Logic CEO sitting in on final interviews." She added proudly, Lynn or something. Nobody even knows who they are. Well, they'll adore me, she declared confidently, flipping her hair back. By this time tomorrow, I'll be part of their executive strategy team. Maybe then you'll finally have something to brag about, she said to Mom with a wink. Oh, honey, Mom cooed, dabbing her eyes dramatically. We're already so proud. At least one of our daughters stayed on track. I glanced at my watch. 13 hours and 58 minutes until Clarissa would walk into that conference room and see me at the head of the table. 13 hours until everything I believed about me would collapse. I gathered my things, murmuring something about an early client call. Oh yes, your little remote gig, Mom waved it off. Just don't forget to Venmo your share of your father's birthday gift. Clarissa already covered most of it again. I nodded without responding. They didn't need to know that my remote gig had grossed 8 figures last quarter. Let them cling to their assumptions. Slipping behind the wheel of the unremarkable gray SUV I reserved for family events, I left my white Mercedes AMG parked safely in the underground garage downtown. As I reversed out of the driveway, Clarissa's voice rang out one last time across the lawn, loud and certain. Tomorrow, everything changes. She was right, just not the way she thought. By 6:30 a.m., I was already seated in my corner office, overlooking Camelback Mountain, the first light of day spilling golden rays across the skyline. The low hum of systems powering up was oddly reassuring. I had built this from nothing, and today it would come full circle. My tailored Alexander McQueen suit, slate gray and sharp, felt less like fashion and more like armor. As I reviewed the agenda, my executive assistant, Naya, knocked softly before stepping in. Your sister's interview is set for 9 a.m. sharp, she said, handing me a slim folder. She's already in the lobby, arrived 25 minutes early. Punctual, that's new. I raised an eyebrow. She's posted about it too. Future executive at Cascade Logic, her words. Marketing picked it up. She even told the front desk she plans to modernize the lookup here once she's hired. I fought a smile. Has she now? I opened the folder, scanning Clarissa's resume. On paper, she was flawless. Dual degrees, glowing recommendations, polished experience. But I knew better. The internship set up through Dad's connections. The praise courtesy of our uncle's law firm. A manufactured resume wrapped in designer. Polish! The board's wondering why you're personally handling this one, Nia added with a smirk. Quality control, I replied simply, rising from my chair. How many interviews before mine? The read, she answered. All briefed. They'll ask the right questions. By 9 a.m., I was standing behind the one-way glass on the upper floor, watching Clarissa walk into the conference suite. She wore a Chanel suit, Prada heels, and an air of superiority that practically oozed from her. She shook hands with the first interviewer like she owned the place. Over the next 2 hours, I watched her mask slowly slip. Every scripted answer unraveled, every shallow credential probed, every assumed accomplishment questioned. By the time she reached the final interview, mine, her eyes were tired, her voice uncertain, and her smile noticeably forced. Send her in, I instructed Nia. Clarissa stepped into my office, clearly trying to hide her awe as she took in the floor-to-ceiling windows, curated art pieces, and the subtle dominance of the room. I kept my back to her, my chair turned to face the panoramic view. Please have a seat, Miss Lin, I said, my voice calm and clipped. Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Lin, she began, her voice strained. I understand how valuable your time is. I turned slowly in my chair, letting the silence stretch for a moment. Actually, I said, locking eyes with her, it's Miss Lin, Emily Renee Lin. The blood drained from her face as the realization hit. The name on the walls, the initials on the press releases, the woman she'd dismissed for years. Hello, Clarissa, I said, offering a calm smile. Surprised to see your directionless sister running the company you've been dying to work for? Her eyes blinked rapidly and her perfectly composed persona started to crumble. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Whatever rehearsed answers she'd prepared were gone. "But this doesn't make sense," she stammered. "You're just a freelance consultant. That's what Mom said." "Am I?" I gestured toward the wall behind me, lined with plaques, innovation awards, and framed magazine covers celebrating Cascade Logic as one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the Southwest. "I built this company from scratch while you and Mom laughed about my little business thing. Every time you flaunted your MBA, I was negotiating international contracts. Every time Dad called me a phase, I was landing Fortune 100 clients. You tricked us," she said, her voice cracking, disbelief flooding her words. "No, Clarissa," I replied evenly. "You all tricked yourselves. You were so busy assuming I was a failure that you never once stopped to ask what I was actually building." I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app and turning it so she could see the recent transfer. "I just sent my share of the birthday money Mom mentioned. It's a 6-figure transfer. To me, it's a rounding error." Tears welled in her eyes, not out of sorrow, but out of anger and humiliation. "So, what now?" she spat, voice trembling. "You're going to expose me? Tell the whole family?" I shook my head. "I don't need to say anything. Your interview performance today speaks for itself. 3 senior partners independent of one another recommended against hiring you. Too arrogant, too surface level, unprepared, entitled." "You set me up," she accused. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. A direct interview with the CEO, I replied, standing and smoothing the front of my suit. "It's not my fault you didn't come ready." I looked her in the eyes, my tone firm. "I suggest you look for opportunities elsewhere, Clarissa. Maybe develop some real experience, something beyond LinkedIn posts and Dad's golf connections." She stood unsteadily, her designer heels now awkward, her outfit looking less like a statement of power and more like a costume. "Do Mom and Dad know?" she asked, her voice still trembling. "They will," I said, stepping toward the door. "I'm sure. You'll tell them all about your interview with her." I pressed the intercom button. "Nia, please escort Miss Lynn out and cancel my dinner plans with the family." "Yes, ma'am," Nia replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "I've got a board meeting that needs my full attention." As the door closed behind Clarissa, I heard her voice crack in the hallway, followed by muffled sobs. It wasn't the victorious exit she'd envisioned. Within the hour, my phone buzzed with a string of family messages. Mom was first. "What kind of cruel joke is this?" Then Dad. "How dare you humiliate your sister like this? We raised you better." I stared at the screen, took a deep breath, and turned it face down. They finally knew who I really was, but what they didn't realize was that I had stopped needing their approval a long time ago. I replied to the family group chat with just one message. "You raised me to be successful. Congratulations, you did. Now maybe you'll recognize what real achievement looks like." Then I powered off my phone and turned my focus back to what actually mattered, leading a billion-dollar tech firm that had disrupted an entire industry while they were too busy mocking me. Let them adjust to this new reality on their own time. I wasn't going to pause for their discomfort. The weeks that followed showed a noticeable shift in family dynamics. Our calls became strained. Gone were the dismissive jabs and passive-aggressive jokes about my little business. Instead, there were awkward silences, forced smiles on Zoom calls, and an undeniable tension that hung in the air. Clarissa accepted a mid-tier project coordinator role at a boutique agency across town. It wasn't the career-defining leap she'd imagined. No fancy title, no corporate corner office, just a standard job earned the traditional way. Mom and Dad stopped hosting their regular Sunday BBQs. Maybe it was shame. Maybe they didn't know how to navigate a world where the daughter they'd underestimated now ran the empire they once ridiculed. But the moment that cemented everything came 3 months later, Forbes released a feature titled The Silent Success. How one woman built a billion-dollar company while her family thought she was failing. My face was on the cover, collar crisp, suit sharp, Cascade Logic skyline in the background. No shadows, no ambiguity. Just me. I had 10 copies of the issue express delivered to each of my family members' homes. Not with a note, not with a message, just the magazine, just the truth. The article detailed my journey, from working odd freelance gigs in a cramped Tempe apartment to building one of the most sought-after AI-integrated systems companies in the U.S. It highlighted the turning points, the quiet sacrifices, the relentless perseverance they never saw and never asked about. The key, final line read, "Sometimes success doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just signs the checks." And honestly, that was enough. I didn't need their praise anymore, nor their recognition. I had built something real, something lasting, something they could never take away. Let them tell their friends. Let them adjust their stories to make themselves look better in hindsight. Let them pretend they always knew. Meanwhile, I'd be at Cascade Logic preparing for our expansion into Europe, closing 2 new enterprise deals, and mentoring the next generation of female tech founders. Success had already spoken for itself, and for me it was more than enough. I had no intention of turning the volume down. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you the most, trust me, I see you. I spent years being told I was too vague, too artsy, too lost. While my sister basked in praise, I was the family's punchline. But I didn't fight back with arguments or by seeking approval. I built something real, something they couldn't ignore, even if they tried. Now, after all the silence, I'm finally telling my story, not out of spite, but to remind you that your worth isn't defined by how others see you. It's defined by how you see yourself. So, if you've ever been made to feel small at a family dinner, if you've hidden your success just to keep the peace, or if you're still building in the shadows, drop a comment below and tell me your story. Tell me what you're working on, what you've overcome, or who you're proving wrong. Not for revenge, but for your own damn peace. And if you felt even a flicker of validation watching me rise from unemployable to CEO, hit that subscribe button. Not just for more stories like mine, but to be part of a community that sees through the noise and recognizes quiet resilience for what it really is. Strength. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. We'll keep building. Because sometimes the best way to win is in silence, until your name is on the building. Before you go, how's your day been? Really, I want to know. Have you had a small win you're proud of? Or maybe you're facing something tough and pushing through. Anyway, drop it in the comments. I read everyone. This channel isn't just about success stories. It's about real people doing real work, even when no one's watching. Let's celebrate the quiet victories.